And it's a foregone conclusion that Trump will likely not win the popular vote. That's even people on the right are in agreement that that's probably not possible, since he hasn't won at the past two elections, the popular vote, and there's not as many voters which are getting into that exist on the GOP anymore in terms of density of population. We'll multiply 7 million times 0.67. That is 4.7 million new voters for the Democrats versus about 2.3 for the GOP. So that's a net of over 2.5 million almost positive for the Democrats in the past 4 years.
That's so
and that's conservative.
That's a significant number when the what do you call them? Like the margins are much lower than that often.
Correct.
In races
so what does
all
that
over
tell
the
you?
country.
That tells you that the popular vote, in my opinion, will not be closer than what it was 4 years ago. It'll be wider apart on the Democratic side. Now it just matters, where does that's a net positive, I just said, of like 2.5 million. That's a net positive. Where do those voters fall? Do they all fall into California, where it won't matter because we're in California, we're already up 30 points? But will they fall into some of the battleground states? Will they fall into Georgia, where it's close, or Arizona?
Pennsylvania's close.
Or North Carolina? That's my point. The point is this. My pat prediction is that it won't even be close. Like, it won't even be close in terms of national. It could be like Harris is 7 points ahead nationally. It could be 53-45. It could be 8 points. The issue, though, is where do those extra votes fall? Where do they fall into each state? Will they matter? I think they'll have to, but will it be enough to move the needle on these very close races?
My feeling is that birth rates are like higher in places in the middle of the country, but I don't know why I think that.
I didn't break it. If I really wanted to, I could have broke down the births by states, but then it's like, oh, they're still living there. And obviously that doesn't count immigrants that became naturalized citizens.
Which is not an insignificant number either.
Yes, I went low on purpose. I went, 8,000 a year instead of 10,000. You know what I mean? And I went, what if only 60% registered to vote instead of like 80%? I went low on purpose, but like 2.5 million net gain nationally, I am confident that that's what's happening this time out. And I'm not going to get super morbid about the loss of voters due to COVID deaths in the past 4 years.
Also not insignificant.
It's at least 1 million people, we know that. And if you look at the graphs of what counties, the majority were in GOP voting counties.
By devastating rates, by devastating amounts.
I'm not trying to get morbid, but I'm looking at the cold, hard facts. The GOP lost more voters to death the past 4 years than the Democrats were on top of it. So that 2.5 million new margin, it's larger than that, probably, based upon the death, and plus the older population dying off. But so that's what numbers-wise I'm looking at. So when you see these national polls where, Harris is usually up like 2 points or 3.
She's up 5 right now.
I don't think it's that close. I really don't. I don't have money on it, but I will, because I predicted successfully 4 years ago on predicted.org, and I put my money where my mouth is. But that's my thoughts on, that's Pat's prediction, is that Harris wins nationally by 6 to 7 points probably. But then it's where do the votes fall? And I think odds are she will win the Electoral College. I just don't know how close it's going to be, because you don't know where those extra votes fall out. Does my logic make sense? Do you follow that?
It does. There's still a lot of obviously like question mark areas that could skew it at any point if there's a metric that we don't understand.
Yeah, and people might say, well, the voting patterns, Pat, might not be the same as 2/3 Democrat for 18 to 29 as 2 years ago. I will say, yeah, they're not going to flip though for the GOP side in 2 years. It might be closer. Hell, it might be wider apart in 2 years. But the point is that the Democrats are literally gaining more voters. Democrats every day. More people are turning 18 and are being registered to vote. That the Democrats are winning those battles every day up until the election, and they have for the past several years. Roe v. Wade changed a lot to a lot of people and young people, because like this is an issue that can affect my life personally like next week. So yeah. Like, well, I should, or it could affect, if I'm a guy, affect my friend.
Women are bleeding out in the street, like it's people are dying because of this. Like there's you're seeing stories all over the country of people.
That's where the GOP to me sold their political soul for the next generation, because by kowtowing to those folks, you've given up any center you had left in your party. That it'll be extremely hard to get back to even center right because of that, and that's why I could say with some confidence in these things, because I honestly was not shocked. I was surprised. I was not shocked that Clinton lost in 2016, because there was weird vibes around Hillary, and of course the Comey FBI investigation announcement a week before the election.
Feels like 1,000 years ago now. It's like unbelievable how mad I was about that.
Either way, the GOP has won the popular vote in the presidential election once since 1992. Once in the past 8 cycles, they have won the popular vote, and that was in 2004.
When, like, after 9/11, when George Bush was the president, we were like at war in the Middle East.
Yeah, but people were tired of the Iraq War, but Kerry was like kind of like milquetoast to people, and like people didn't want, I think, to just pull out and give up all our gains we had in the Middle East, and that was why I said, well, we'll just stay the course now.
I think there was just genuine support for the Iraq War at that time.
No, there was the election wasn't too far apart in 2004. It wasn't like a landslide.
I just mean, but they did win the popular vote, which almost never happens.
But he didn't win it in 2000.
Yeah, so, but 9/11 hadn't happened yet.
Sure, but the 9/11 vibes were gone by 2004. Maybe you're too young to remember that, but like 2004, there was a lot of anti-Bush sentiment, a lot.
There always was, but I'm just saying, like, there must have been real support for it at that time.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is that was the last time they won the popular vote, and if the GOP continues down this right-wing track, they won't win another presidential election popular vote for I don't know, next 40 years.
Unless there's like a quasi-fascist takeover like next cycle. Like, I don't think
they don't allow people to vote anymore.
I don't think they've got like another election in them. Like, it's broken. Like, like, what are they gonna, if they lose and half the party tries to like insurrect the country or something like that, you know, or some kind of riot happens again, or you know, you have to go with like this like crazy angry Trump or like an establishment Republican Party that's trying to like right the ship. Like, I don't see it ending with a big party that's all together against the Democrats by the end. Does that sound wrong to me?
I don't know. Well, I guess it depends. Like, if the GOP wins the presidential election, who knows what happens in the next 4 years?
Maybe I'll finally get to like be like in any way discerning about the Democratic candidate for once in my fucking life.
But the Democrats win, and the GOP has to lick their wounds and decide, well, how are we going to be going forward? How are we going to be a national party again on the presidential stage? Because they can still, like I said, gerrymander certain states, and they still can win Senate seats and things like that. Like, how are we going to come back from this? I don't know. That's not what this podcast is about. I'm just telling the numbers, and the numbers for younger voters day by day means more of a margin for the Democrats up until the election.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just it feels good, but I'm like traumatized now.
I'm not traumatized. Why are you traumatized?
Like the last 2 times that I've been like, yeah, we got this. It was like the worst days of my life.
It'll be an interesting election night. It'll be interesting.
I'm hoping
you know how I spent the night?
Huh.
Because I was looking at the cold numbers. It was all my Democratic friends, some of our mutuals, being worried about like certain states like Georgia, and I had to tell them, don't worry. I'm like looking at the counties and where the votes are still out, and like looking at just crunching numbers on my calculator. I'm like, don't worry, Georgia's going to go Democratic. I'm seeing all these votes out in this county, and that's like a stronghold for Democrats. It was everyone freaking the fuck out. I had to like tell them, don't worry, it's going to be fine. It's just going to take a little bit to count these votes, and it was interesting. It was the same friends that would argue about policy back in like 2012 or 2008. Now it's like, don't worry, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm just literally just crunching them, and it's going to be okay for the Democrats. You don't have to jump out the fucking window now. And that's the last thing I'll say. I think this is just anecdotal evidence from. I talked to a few people I know in Pennsylvania, which is a battleground state. If Harris wins Pennsylvania, she basically wins the election. If she loses it, she's in trouble. Just my anecdotal evidence from the people in Pennsylvania are saying that they see enthusiasm for Trump down, and less signs. And the traditional Republicans that in the past were like defending Trump's weird things he was saying doing are having a harder time doing that. I think that combination also of enthusiasm is going to be down for the GOP. Like I said, things can happen. 2016 was a weird thing. I just don't see it. I'm trying to be objective. I don't see it happening this time where Trump pulls the rabbit out of the hat again. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think it's going to get real scary if he loses. But I'm hopeful that he's going to. I don't have zero hope that this is going to go the way that I'm hoping.
I think it's scary if he loses, but not if he wins. That's interesting coming from a Democratic voter. That's interesting.
I'm scared in a like long burn way if he wins.
You're scared either way. Then if he wins or he loses, you're scared.
Yeah, it's. I mean, but in a more acute way, I'm scared. Like on November 5th or whatever day it is, I'm scared if he loses. Like I'm scared.
Well, would you feel better if he wins?
No, of course not.
Okay, so either way, you have existential dread. Okay,
I don't feel confident that it's going to go well.
Either way,
yeah.
So, okay, all right, fair enough.
That's my Alex Smith. That's my Alex prediction.
We'll see. Okay, that's again my prediction. It's like a 7 to 8 points ahead nationally. Let's say 7 points. She goes nationally ahead, but we'll see how that breaks down state by state.
If it's a massacre, though, maybe there won't be as much unrest.
Looking at some of these sites, it's the likelihood of Trump winning is like the same as her winning the electoral college by like 70 votes. It's like one of those sort of deals where it's like, well, if he wins, yeah, it's possible, but it's also possible that she blows him out of the water, like more than Biden.